Walk into your local Walmart or Kroger right now, and you will see the same thing you always see. Towers of fresh apples in perfect pyramids, rows of strawberries in neat green cartons, avocados arranged so carefully they almost look placed by hand. It looks like everything worked. Like the farms, the trucks, the warehouses all came together at exactly the right moment, so you could grab what you need on the way home. But here is what that display is not telling you. Before that fruit ever left the farm, the people running that store had already done the math. They knew some of it would not sell. They knew it would sit on the shelf, pass its window, go soft, get pulled, and end up in a dumpster out back. And they ordered it anyway. Grocery stores run on some of the thinnest profit margins in all of retail. 1%. Sometimes 2%. For every $100 a customer spends, the store keeps maybe $1 after paying for everything. The product, the staff, the building, the refrigerators. Almost no room for waste. And yet here they are, deliberately buying food they expect to throw away at a scale that adds up to billions of dollars a year. That is not carelessness. That is not poor forecasting. That is a calculated business decision. And once you understand why they make it, you will never look at a grocery store the same way again. Let me give you a different picture, one where the store made the opposite choice. Tuesday evening. You just finished work. Milk, eggs, chicken, vegetables, bread. A normal run to a store you have been to 100 times. You walk in. Something feels off. The produce section is thin, a few heads of broccoli scattered across a mostly empty bin. The apple display has a dozen pieces rattling on a tray built for 100. The bakery case is sparse, a gap in the bread aisle where your brand should be. The whole place feels depleted. The food looks fine. Prices have not changed, but something makes you slow down. Maybe you work through it, but maybe you put the basket down and try somewhere else. Or you buy half of what you came for and wonder on the drive home whether this store is still worth the trip. Here is what almost nobody does. Calmly substitute every missing item and leave feeling just as satisfied as if the shelves were full. Real shopping does not work that way. Abundance is not just a visual, it is a signal. The store is well managed, the food is fresh, the trip is worth your time. When that signal breaks down, even when the food itself is fine, customers spend less, hesitate more, and some stop coming back. The most obvious solution to grocery waste, just order less, turns out to cause a problem far more expensive than the one it was trying to fix. And the industry learned this the hard way. Years ago, Walmart's operations teams started looking hard at spoilage in their fresh departments. Produce getting pulled before it could sell, milk sitting near its date in the cooler. The fix seemed obvious. Use sales data to predict exactly how much each store needed each day and order that amount. Lean, precise, no excess. They ran the test. A group of stores pulled back their fresh orders, restocking to actual demand instead of building large visual displays. Spoilage dropped immediately. Then the other numbers came in. Sales fell. Not by a rounding error, but enough to alarm everyone watching. Customers were walking into produce sections and leaving without buying. The food was fresh. The price had not changed. The shelf looked sparse. That was enough. Customers were not deciding whether to buy apples. They were reading the shelf as a signal about the entire store. A full display says this place is well run. The food is fresh. The selection is reliable. A sparse display says the opposite, even when every piece of fruit on it is in perfect condition. Walmart went back to overordering. Sales recovered. Waste came back too.
But the revenue it protected was worth considerably more than the cost of the food in the dumpster. Visible waste, purchased deliberately to protect against invisible revenue loss. That is the foundation of how fresh food retail actually works.
Inventory planners split what sits on a grocery shelf into two distinct categories. The first is cycle stock, inventory the store genuinely expects to sell, calculated from historical demand. If a store moves around 80 cartons of strawberries on a typical Tuesday, those 80 cartons are the cycle stock for that day. The second is presentation stock. This is where everything shifts. Presentation stock is not ordered because anyone expects it to sell. It is ordered to make the display look full. It exists to be seen, not purchased. Think of the mannequin in a clothing store window. Nobody expects you to buy what it is wearing. It exists to pull you through the door. Fresh produce works on the same logic, with one critical difference. A mannequin wears the same jacket for months. A display of ripe peaches has 4 days. In grocery, some presentation stock will always expire before anyone buys it. That is not a planning failure. It is built into the model. So how does a business with 1 or 2% net margins survive knowingly destroying its own inventory? The answer is in the gross margin on fresh produce. Packaged goods carry thin margins because they are commodities. Fresh produce is different. Grocery stores typically earn 40 to 50% gross margin on fruits and vegetables. Here is what that means. A carton of blackberries sells for $5. The store paid $2. Every sale puts $3 of profit into the business. If they overorder and throw one carton away, they lose the $2 they paid. But because the margin is $3 per sale, just one additional carton that a thinner shelf would have missed completely covers that loss and leaves money on top. The high margin makes the model survivable, but it only captures the first half of what is at stake. Think about what happens when a customer expects something and finds the shelf empty. The assumption is they skip that item and keep shopping. The data says otherwise. When customers hit a missing product, a significant portion do not substitute normally. They recalibrate the entire trip. Some put items back, some simply leave. And when they leave, they do not just take the cost of one item. They take the whole basket. The average U.S. grocery basket runs between $70 and $90. That is the real number at risk when a shelf goes empty. Not $2 for a carton of blackberries, but an $80 shopping trip walking out the door. Lose that customer often enough, and you are not losing one basket. You are losing a regular shopper for the year. Operations professionals call this the lost basket penalty, and it reframes the entire inventory decision. When a planner sets safety stock levels, the extra buffer held against demand spikes or supplier delays, they are weighing spoilage against the basket penalty. That comparison almost always points toward more inventory. This is where service level comes in, how often a product is on the shelf when a customer wants it. Hitting 99% on perishables means carrying more inventory than demand alone suggests. Some of it will expire. That waste is not a side effect of the service level. It is the price of it. Cut inventory, service level drops. Basket penalty grows, revenue loss outpaces every dollar saved on spoilage. The math keeps pointing the same direction. More inventory wins, not because waste does not matter, but because the alternative costs more. None of this means every grocery chain has to play the same game. The trade-off is unavoidable, but where you sit on that spectrum is a strategic choice. Trader Joe's is the clearest example of a company that chose a different answer. Walk into a Trader Joe's and notice the scale immediately. Smaller stores, tighter aisles, radically limited selection. A Walmart supercenter carries 40 to 50,000 product lines. Trader Joe's carries around 4,000. Not a limitation, a deliberate design decision. Fewer products means each item gets more shelf space. A display needing 300 units to look full in a standard store might only need 100 at Trader Joe's
because the same space is split among far fewer items. Presentation stock requirements drop sharply, and faster-moving products sell before they expire.
The result is one of the highest inventory turnover rates in the industry, without the structural waste the abundance model demands. But notice what they gave up. Trader Joe's does not carry your preferred brand. They traded product breadth for operational efficiency, betting customers would value reliability over variety. That bet paid off, but only because the choice was made deliberately, all the way down to the inventory parameters. Your inventory decisions are a direct expression of your brand promise. A business promising unlimited choice carries the waste that promise requires. A business promising a curated experience can run leaner, but only by fully accepting what leanness demands. You cannot have both. The question is which trade-off your model requires and whether you are making it consciously. Zero waste in fresh food retail is not a sign of efficiency. It is a warning sign. A store at zero spoilage is almost certainly running shelves too thin, trading a cost on a waste report for a much larger cost in declining revenue and weakening loyalty. Those costs are harder to see and considerably larger when they surface. The businesses that get this right do not minimize waste. They understand exactly how much waste their model requires and manage that number deliberately, knowing their service level, knowing what the basket penalty costs when they miss it. That is what operational excellence actually looks like. Not the absence of imperfection, the disciplined, deliberate choice of the least expensive imperfection. Every overflowing produce display you have ever walked past was the result of that calculation running in the background. The waste was planned. The abundance was purchased. And the companies that figured out exactly where to set that dial are the ones that build businesses that last. If the way companies think through decisions like this, the trade-offs they are actually weighing, the logic underneath choices that look irrational until you see the full picture, if that interests you, this is the channel for it. Every video on the supply brief takes a real business operation, pulls it apart, and shows you how it actually works. Subscribe, and every week you will understand something about how the world runs that most people never think to question.